Where I think we're doing well though is the fact that we're actually trying. So I can't be upset. Like, I'm a Black person, clearly, right? I got natural hair, I got a funky haircut that everybody love, by the way. Thank you very much.
Love it.
Funky
We love it.
haircut,
I'm jealous. I'm losing my mind. So
natural hair. I always say I'm a Black girl from a Black neighborhood who went to 2 Black schools, who's a part of a Black sorority, and I still work in big tech. I am an advocate for that because I want people who look like me to understand that it is very much still possible to be in these spaces and be from neighborhoods that I am also from. Where I think we're doing well is we are actually trying. So what I mean by that is I was partnering with a company and I was on a panel, and a white guy, he comes up to me who works for the company. He says, Shanae, I listened to you on the panel and I love what you had to say. I have a question. I said, what's your question? He said, I work with a lot of the HBCUs to try to get more minorities into tech or into consulting or into these different spaces that they may not have access to. I said, perfect. I love that. And so he said, how do I connect with people who are from the HBCU community, even though I'm not Black? I said, that's a good question. I said, now, do you want the real answer or do you want a professional answer? He was like, I want the real answer. I said, it is difficult to listen to someone who does not look like us come to an HBCU to want to bring more people in. It's hard for Black folk, especially young Black people, to connect with that at times. That's not in every situation, but sometimes it is. I said, so you find something that they can connect with, and then you can literally connect with them on a personal level that way, and you then go into business. For example, if you got on a suit, throw on some J's, throw on a pair of ones. And then literally, if you have on a suit and you have on some fly shoes or some dope shoes, like immediately people go right to the shoes. So now they want to talk about shoes, and then you can then bring business into that. So I think what we're doing well is the fact that he actually asked me and he wanted to really know. Daryl, you also said at the very beginning of this, you said, I'm going to be a student in a lot of these conversations. I love that. The goal is, all we want is to try to understand, even if you don't. So that's where I think we're doing well, is to step forward and actually trying.
Hey, I'll be honest. It's funny. So as you guys know, and people listening in probably know, like, I'm from the UK, and when I moved here to America 3 years back, like, if I call customer service, if I'm in a situation where I am not seen and my voice is not heard yet, my name is connected to being a Black person more than it is to a white person.
I've had you Black. Trust me.
I have had that so many times where they'll say to me, they'll come on the phone, they'll be like, I thought you were Black, like, you're a white guy. And so we all suffer from bias. Like, it's a natural thing. It's not a crime, like, it's there. But you hit on a really good point earlier about, if we are aware of our ignorance, if we're aware of where we are missing empathy, where we're missing understanding. You know, I was in a meeting a few weeks back with my team and the leaders, and we were talking about this, and I stopped certain people a few times, and I was like, that is unconscious bias. Like, we have to address that. We have to do better. It's not about, and we touched on it briefly earlier. I'd love to get your perspective on it. The whole, like, diversity hire token, where people do not want to feel like that they're a diversity hire. People want to be hired because they're dang good at what they do, right? And so it's helping leaders understand that we hire for skill first. That, like, engineering, tech, the defense sector, like, the three areas that us three are in is yes, it's predominantly male industries. And I used to be in the security space. It was very, very male heavy. And we had an emphasis on, kind of getting gender equality in our hiring. But I always help leaders understand, like, this doesn't replace hiring the best person for the job. It's about improving your approach to encompassing more people. I'd love maybe just to wrap up your perspective on that and, like, the diversity hire, token.
Yeah, so I've heard it a couple of different ways, and honestly, I see all points of it. I've had to genuinely expand my mind working in big tech. I didn't realize how closed-minded I was until I worked in big tech and literally started to work with people from all walks of life. And so, one of the perspectives I have, I sat in on a panel with an amazing podcast. Not sure if you all heard of it. It's called Tech is the New Black. Sat in on a panel with Tech is the New Black, and that was one of the questions that was asked. And so the person who answered it, the question was something like, have you ever felt like the token Black person in a company? And my answer was no, because I've literally never felt like a token Black person. I've never been in that situation. But another person who's been in tech way longer than me was like, yeah, I have felt like the token Black person, and I don't care, because the same information that I need to continue with my skill set and to develop myself is what this job is giving me, and they're paying me for it. So I saw that perspective, and I was just like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Then I saw the perspective of, why not hire me for my skill set? Why did you just hire me because I was Black? I see all sides of it. So I put up a post on LinkedIn a while ago, and people took it different ways. The post was, you didn't get the job not because you are Black, but could it be that you just didn't interview well? And I asked that question because there are times when we do feel like we're hired because we're Black and not for our skill set. And part of that could be that it's what we're hearing when we get on the job. It's how that sounds. It sounds like you only hired me because I'm Black. I asked that question because I've sat in on interviews where, literally, being the HR person in the interview, where people who look like me did not interview well. People who didn't look like me didn't interview well. And none of those people were hired. And so I would feel like I agree with hiring the best person for the job, but you also have to look at it in a way where some of the jobs that people who look like me want, we don't have the skill set for it yet. And part of that is because some of the information we are just learning. So there are times when the African American community is behind the curve. So there are certain things that I didn't learn until after law school. I've had plenty of people that I've talked to from the Black community who have said, well, I didn't learn this until after college, where other communities have access to it if they're in middle school or high school and stuff like that. So I just see all sides of it. I don't have a straight answer to that. I just see all points of it. And I try to stay neutral because I get all sides of it. So I try to be an advocate for all points of it so that everybody understands everyone, again, coming back to, so we all can win together.
Yeah. I think from a talent acquisition standpoint, to kind of bring this full circle, I think one of our biggest objectives should be creating equity within the process, right? Equitable hiring processes, because I think if we take that approach and we work really hard to instill that in our hiring teams and our hiring managers and in our training and everything like that, we're going to find that, talent is evaluated more consistently and fairly. We eliminate, kind of the biases towards referrals or towards certain types of candidates from certain communities or certain schools or whatever it may be. And also what it does is it really, if we're doing it the correct way, it opens up new channels for us to build new partnerships with different communities, different talent channels, right? So what I have found is that, the best thing we can do, at least up to this point, maybe I don't know everything, I don't have all the answers, but in my experience, working hard to create those equitable hiring processes and that consistency of talent evaluation, like your managers and you as a recruiter and the recruitment teams need to really know how you're evaluating talent. And if you start to see sniffs of bias or any kind of anything that deviates away from how you're teaching your teams to evaluate talent, you need to, track that. You need to call it out. You need to figure out, okay, well, where are we missing the mark? Why are you viewing it this way? Why is this candidate maybe not being considered when on paper it looks like they meet all the criteria, right? So I just think that there's a lot of responsibility on talent acquisition teams to adhere, build those consistent processes, those equitable processes, and bring everyone else in, right? And keep everyone moving in the same direction. It may not solve all the problems, but it will help us, get us heading in the right direction at the very least.
You pulled the Andrew. You always do this. You pulled the words out of my mouth. I wanted to say that. You hit the nail on the head. I think it really comes down to having a good, consistent process, because if you're going to do a quick phone screen and like one crappy interview, and that's how you're hiring your teams, then it's very easy for someone from a minority community to feel, was I a diversity hire? But if you as the recruiter, like, hey, like, Shanae, I, gave you a really thorough phone screen. You then went through a hiring manager interview. You then had a technical interview because, you're an engineer. And then, we had a final cultural chat with one of our VPs, and we put 12 other people through that process. You are one of the best. We want you. That is going to make Shanae feel like, like, I earned this. Like, this is my role. Like, I'm one of the best and for this role right now, and I'm really grateful for it. Blah 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 blah. It's less likely, because we have a good process in place, less likely for them to feel like, oh, I was this super rapid diversity hire, and more that you were hired for your skill.